Kellogg has, at some point in the last week, effectively been demoted from his role as envoy to Ukraine and Russia. Apparently, the Russians don't like him very much, so he wasn't invited to the conversations in Saudi Arabia.
We have seen, as I say, the President of the United States seemingly changing sides in the argument over the war in Ukraine and who is to blame for that. We've just seen in the last few moments a post on Truth Social, the social media platform from President Trump, which is frankly abusive towards President Zelensky, and it's full of inaccuracies. Actually, inaccuracies is to understate it. These are simply falsehoods, and it's stirred the debate up to a new pitch, and that, believe me, is really saying something. Hi, it's good to have your company here on Drive on Times Radio. I'm John Pienaar. Now let's try to be objective about President Trump. Let's try hard. No one truly knows what's running through Donald Trump's mind when he speaks except Donald Trump, and even that's debatable. But if we heard a Kremlin mouthpiece or a Russian media cheerleader or Vladimir Putin himself say that Ukraine started the war with Russia, ought to have done a deal to end it quickly, and the best thing Ukraine could do now is call an election, because Vladimir Zelensky is deeply unpopular and has no mandate to govern, we would shrug, we'd call every word a barefaced lie, and we'd say, well, what else do you expect? Now, hearing Donald Trump say all of that was somehow shocking, partly because of the glaring falsehood of those claims, but mainly with the realization that in weighing the case for Ukraine against Russia's illegal invasion, the President of the United States seems to have undeniably changed sides. Ukraine and Europe are struggling to cope with the new reality and what it means for them, for their security, confronting the threat from Russia, and a future in which it seems they can no longer depend on America's support or friendship. Well, on today's show, we're going to be taking a rapid tour around Europe. In a moment, I'll be talking live to a former Prime Minister of Poland, and a little later, we'll get the thoughts of Germany's ambassador to the UK. So how can anyone explain President Trump's echoing Vladimir Putin's slogans and messages the way that he did? Can you? I mean, send me a text. Do tell me what you think. 87222. Start with the word Times, or a tweet to @Times Radio. We all woke up, didn't we, this morning to Donald Trump's response to Ukrainian complaints that they have been left out of talks over ending the war.
I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president. And I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years. And a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago. When they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago? You could have made a deal. This is one that could have made a deal. There was no talk of this during the Trump administration.
Well, President Zelensky responded by saying the American president was stuck in a disinformation bubble, challenging his claim that he'd had an approval rating of 4%. In fact, it's now sitting at, 57% or so. And for his part, Vladimir Putin thought the talks went very well, signaling his readiness to meet with the American president in the near future.
As a whole, the atmosphere was very friendly, and our participants told me that the Americans were totally different people. They were totally open to the negotiation process. They had no prejudices, they had no judgments about things that have happened in the past. In any case, there haven't been any bilateral contacts yet, but there is an attitude of readiness to work together openly.
To Kyiv now in Ukraine, where Keith Kellogg, Donald Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, has arrived.
We're going to listen. We understand the need for security guarantees. It was very clear to us the importance of sovereignty of this nation and independence of this nation as well. And part of my mission is to sit and listen.
Now I can talk first to Catherine Philp, who's live on the line, the Times World Affairs editor in Kyiv. Hello to you, Catherine.
Hello, John.
Catherine, welcome, as always. Really good to have you with us. The first thing I have to do, Catherine, is just put to you a social media post, which has just been put up by President Trump on the Truth Social platform. This is an extract, just an extract of what he has to say. He describes Volodymyr Zelensky as a modestly successful comedian who talked the United States into spending $350 billion. There's a period, patch, where he attacks Donald Trump and his failure to deal with the war. And then he talks about Zelensky in this way. He says he refuses to have elections. He's very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle, a dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast, or he's not going to have a country left. And he just adds, for good measure, Catherine, Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine. Zelensky's done a terrible job. His country's shattered. I just wonder, what's your immediate response to that extraordinary post?
Well, where to start? Is there anything in there that's true? Let me have a look. Playing like a fiddle, I think, is the other way around. I think that what Donald Trump's posted just now on Truth Social suggests that he's been played like a fiddle by the Russian side, because every statistic and comment that I can see in this post is one that we've heard before from the Russian side. I mean, these figures, clearly the Russians have told him, conveyed to him, this will probably be during that phone call with Putin last week, that the US has been somehow exploited and has paid $200 billion more than Europe, and a total of 350. Well, that's not true. For starters, Europe's paid more. The figures are nothing like that. I
think the figures show. I think the figures show, Catherine.
I mean, the problem is he's been speaking to a dictator who does have elections, has fake elections to keep himself in power, and that's Vladimir Putin. But I think the only thing that he said possibly that could be true is that this is a conflict that has seen more people killed than any other since the end of the World War II. But it's not millions. And I think it really, we're seeing the gloves come off in this relationship. Trump doesn't like Zelensky. Zelensky's finally stood up to him, and this is PR.
Exactly so, I guess, Catherine, because this is maybe just for that reason a really significant moment, isn't it? I mean, look at this Truth Social and put it on top of what we heard last night, and then taking Volodymyr Zelensky's reaction to all of this. When he was speaking earlier on, he was tempering what he said, wasn't he, with a certain amount of respect. But the message and the tone was pretty clear. He seems to be now treating Donald Trump as, well, on the other side of Ukraine's existential struggle, even as a hostile force.
Absolutely. And I mean, that is how this is being felt here, is that this is an existential struggle, and it is not an existential struggle in which the US is behind Ukraine. It is a moment. I mean, my gosh, how many times have we said that in the last week? But this really feels like one. And I think that it is the end of Zelensky's attempts to sort of flatter and cajole and seduce Donald Trump over to his side. Trump has shown exactly what he thinks of him.
Yeah, I know. I mean, can you just give me just a sense of the reaction more widely where you are in Kyiv? It isn't the first time we've seen Donald Trump demonstrating sympathy to Putin's position, but we haven't been here before. Just give me a sense of the mood and the atmosphere, what you're picking up.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Zelensky's ratings actually went up further than 57%, which is where they are at the moment. Yep. He also said in his press conference that he would conduct some polls to see what the levels of approval and trust were in various figures like Trump and Erdogan within Ukraine, and that he would publish that so it could be seen. Look, what I've spoken today to people who don't necessarily like Zelensky very much, people who didn't even vote for him when he actually won a landslide 5 years ago. What Trump has succeeded in doing is rallying them behind Zelensky, because Ukrainians feel like if Zelensky is to be criticized in this way, it's for them to do that. He's their president, even if even if they didn't like him in the past. It's for them to say, and not for Trump.
I'd say exactly the opposite, presumably, of what Donald Trump wants to achieve, or Vladimir Putin. And just finally, are we now looking at a situation, Catherine, where Zelensky and the Ukrainian leadership are just going to be giving up on American sympathetic engagement and reaching out to friends in Europe to form whatever kind of joint front they can?
I think we're probably already there. I mean, Zelensky addressed that this morning and said that, his focus was going to be on Europe. I mean, we've got Kellogg in Kyiv at the moment. Now, Kellogg has, at some point in the last week, effectively been demoted from his role as envoy to Ukraine and Russia. Apparently, the Russians don't like him very much, so he wasn't invited to the conversations in Saudi Arabia. Now, his job is now to speak to Ukraine and to Europe. He's completely shut out of the bilateral track, which means that Zelensky is too. So no one within that track is speaking to Zelensky anymore. The only people he's really communicating with and negotiating with at the moment are his European allies. So I think we're going to see further action amongst those allies because they're going to have to decide where they go next.
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary. I'm going to have to find another word than extraordinary, Catherine, because I'm wearing it out. It's really good to talk to you. Catherine Philp there in Kyiv. Now, I can get the thoughts live on the line from Jan Krzysztof Bielecki, who's the former Prime Minister of Poland. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you.
Good day, and thank you for joining us. Can I ask you, first of all, were you surprised, were you shocked to hear Donald Trump say what he said, that Ukraine started the war with Russia?
That was a little bit too much, I have to admit. I try to understand better the negotiating tactics of Donald Trump, but in this situation, I think he went simply too far and should be met with the very clear and straightforward answer from everybody, not only from countries of Eastern Europe.
Right. And what is your answer? What is your clear, straightforward answer to Donald Trump now?
But this is nonsense, and really, we cannot build on a wrong understanding of facts and the history of relation between Russia and Ukraine, at least over the last 11 years. Since first invasion in 2014.
Now, tell me this. In your judgment, and as far as one can know, do you calculate that President Trump, the United States president, is truly a convinced supporter of Russia's position as he set it out yesterday? It could have been a Kremlin spokesman speaking, or is he being misled by false counsel, maybe by Putin himself? What's your view?
I hope that it's not maybe even the issue of being mis-counseled, as you said, but that it's still a kind of a game, negotiating way of negotiations in order to reach his objective. That at some stage he will make a return or go a little bit backward and realize some basic facts that we are still hopefully in the process of a negotiating game played by different people from Trump's team on different instruments, because you can observe that Vice President is for speaking about cultural revolution or cultural change in the world. Then Elon Musk is about political movements supporting conservative thinking all over the world, and then the negotiators in Saudi Arabia have a little bit different objectives and tasks, and then General Kellogg. So
yes,
that somebody is in charge, and it's not just a messy way of communication.